Hi, I'm John Logar from Brisbane, Australia. I'm a member of the Foundation 2014, and I just wanted to share my journey along the way and some of the experience that I've had in being involved with the Foundation and developing my own SaaS business. My background is in consulting. I've been in business for 28 years for myself. I've had numerous agencies and companies. Probably the largest business I ran had about 30 employees and over 1,000 clients, both nationally and internationally. And I had that business close on to 8 years. And so I've always been in the consulting game. And I guess for me, the big thing is solving problems for people. And one of the things that attracted me to the Foundation was the fact that in listening to somebody and then being able to identify a significant problem and then coming up with a solution or an idea in which you can automate that problem and potentially start a business really appealed to me. And so I guess that retention model, which I have experienced in the past, is a very successful model, and SaaS tends to lend itself to that. So I joined the Foundation, and I got to tell you, I went through a little bit of a learning curve in terms of readjusting my thinking. And so my goal was to follow the process and the program, work with people within the Foundation to develop a product in the market, and essentially I just started working through going through the motions of I guess the beginnings of that journey in late December of 2013. So what I did was essentially my goal or my approach was to keep it very simple. I wanted to make sure that I was talking to about 2 people per day within an industry niche. That was my goal. I identified really in terms of creating a solution or solving a problem in the market, I only really needed to find perhaps 5 to 7 people who had the same issue or the same challenge in their business, so that enabled me to look for a solution that would solve that particular problem. So I didn't really, I felt that it wouldn't take me long to delve into a particular niche to extract those types of needs from people in relation to the challenges that they face on a day-to-day basis in their business. I wanted to validate very, very quickly by pre-selling. I'm not new to the concept of pre-selling. In the past, I've raised $500,000 on an idea before it was even developed, and that was quite an interesting journey. So pre-selling to me was an attractive option going through with the Foundation, and essentially I wanted to. The concept of idea extraction really is very similar to the concept of consultative selling. You're really delving deep or asking questions in relation to a challenge or an issue that a person has in their business or a business owner that has in their business, and essentially you're listening for, I guess, how emotional or how painful that problem is. And if it is painful enough and you can validate that financially by asking some questions about how much it's costing them right now to be inefficient or to be less productive, and if there was a way to automate that process, that they would get much greater benefit out of implementing that strategy. And so I really wanted to, I guess idea extraction for me is what fuels and feeds the opportunity for the solution. And one of the things that I've learned to discover is you just can't stop doing idea extraction, because even in validating an idea or finding a solution, you invariably, when you continue to ask questions, there's always something more, or there's always something extra that comes along that adds to, I guess, articulating or defining that problem more specifically. And so one thing I did learn is that you've got to keep talking to people and you've got to keep engaging people. And when I started being consistent with that philosophy or with that idea, that's when the magic started to happen for my opportunity with the Foundation. The one thing that I also learned in terms of a transition, I always thought I was a pretty good listener, but I discovered that I actually wasn't a very good listener. I think I was on a webinar where Carl Madiola and Dane were talking about the process of idea extraction, and Carl mentioned something about taking a pause or allowing the silence to for the person to actually respond or answer to your questions. And I think when I actually started to listen, when I actually gave that pause to people and gave them that space to search or to I guess find and articulate their problem more specifically, and even to make that emotional connection, that's where pure gold comes from, those moments of pause. And so one thing I did learn in my transition with the foundation is to become a better listener, which I thought I was, but I had a lot to learn. So I'm pretty grateful for those sorts of things. The process has been a really interesting one. It's been a bit of a roller coaster ride. I guess like anything, when you jump into something new, you want to start things quickly and you want to get things going, and there's a whole bunch of questions that come up with the process. I guess for me, I selected my niche markets relatively quickly, and I went there very fast. And I wanted to choose markets that I had no affinity with, and I guess the reason I wanted to choose that was because I enjoy learning, and I thought it'd be an interesting process to go and learn about other industries through the connection with the foundation. And I guess that also caused some of its problems as well, which I'll share with you in a moment. So I originally chose a few markets. Now my strategy was to connect and engage with people as quickly as possible. And so what I tried to do was I generated lists from Google searches, from industry associations. I find industry associations have been amazing in being able to find connections within markets. A lot of industry associations have awards, and with those awards come winners, and those companies are identified and shared with their groups. So it was very easy to find people to speak to, or to find connections using association networks. The other thing that I used quite significantly was LinkedIn, and LinkedIn gives you the opportunity to go into industry-specific groups and actually target specific directors or, more importantly, decision makers. So my goal was to connect with as many decision makers within the niches that I've chosen, and I found the easiest place to find that was to do it online through associations, through LinkedIn, and also through forums as well. It's amazing how many forums there are out there for industry-specific groups. So the strategy was simple: get a list as quickly as possible, start engaging. I scraped a lot of lists, and then I started sending emails, and I also implemented a very simple connection strategy through LinkedIn, where I would ask for a connection, make a comment about their website or their blog or their company that perhaps I liked in terms of what I saw. Very quickly got an acceptance of that connection within LinkedIn, and then I would send a one-question email. So I would ask them, look, I'm working on a specific project within your industry niche, and I'm doing a little bit of research. Is it okay if I ask you this one question? And that question might be, on a day-to-day basis, what's the biggest challenge that you face, or most common challenge that you face in your business? And so I would send out that single-line email once a person accepted my connection, and I would say let's say out of 50 emails, I would probably get about 11 to 17 responses where people would respond back to the question with an answer, and then I would actually send another email asking them for permission to just spend some time on the phone with them, and I would generally find that most people were quite amiable to that in relation to giving a little bit of their time, and they were quite generous actually. It was a really simple strategy. It worked really well. It was very effective in getting into connections and specifically decision makers through LinkedIn. The other thing I did was, in scraping lists, is I just directly contacted people through the market. So what I was doing was essentially crafting an email, a very simple email, sending that email out to the prospective person that I was looking to do idea extraction with. And when I sent that email out, I would follow up with a phone call literally immediately. So as soon as I pressed the send button, I'd pick up the phone, give them a call, and my question was, did you get my email? And in asking that question, invariably most people would say, no, I didn't get it. And I almost acted like I knew them, so that helped the posture a little bit of getting through the gatekeeper. And so it was a very simple process, and I got through a lot of idea extraction calls by using that particular strategy. So my goal was to speak to 2 people per day and have 2 complete idea extraction calls per day. That was the goal for me. I dedicated about 2 hours a day. I only work half a day in my business, so I get up really early. I just kind of pick whichever 12 hours that half a day is. And so I'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I'd be calling the west coast of the United States for those types of questions. So what I'll be doing is looking at connecting with people on the west coast USA and also connecting with people in Australia as well. So getting up at an hour early at 5 in the morning was pretty easy to hop on Skype and start dialing and talking to people overseas to start doing the idea extraction process. So I was also looking for industry leaders, authorities, speakers, consultants to specific niche markets. I found that they were very easy to connect with, and so they were really great because they would also introduce you to other people or their clients in helping you with the idea extraction process. So I thought that was a really neat strategy to go through, and it was really funny that people like consultants or speakers are really open to having people engage them. So, and they're really generous with their information because they've got very specific industry knowledge. So because they kind of sit outside as a consultant to their industry, they tend to identify some of the challenges and the problems that those industries have with their observations. So to me, that was a very, very simple strategy to go after. The email phoning strategy to me was the most successful strategy that I used. It was very quick. It was not. It was a cold call, so to speak, but I had a reason for the call, and that's why it made that phone call very easy. And so I went through that process. So I guess what I've done and where I'm at with the foundation in terms of my milestones, I'll just share with you what occurred with me when I went through this idea extraction process. I chose the commercial building automation and engineering niche. Commercial building automation is a new area. Green building and efficiencies through building practices is improving at a remarkable rate, and so that industry is a growing industry, and I thought being a growing industry would be great to get into. And I also chose the plumbing niche as well, thinking that the trade services need software, and so I thought I'd start going into the trade services area, specifically targeting the plumbing niche. So what had actually occurred is I made 22 IE calls. I found a significant problem within one company in the engineering automation field, and I came up with a solution and I pre-sold it to them for $15,000. So they had an idea where they had a really big problem, and just listening to them with that problem, with my experience of understanding the fact that you can outsource and solve that problem relatively easily, I found that by listening through that listening process, it was really easy to join the dots as to what they needed to do to save a lot of money and save a lot of time in the strategy. So in what I did was I basically went away to Odesk, found a developer, found a web developer to help me with the user interface. I found a specialist in also in some programming in relation to some back-end programming for their little system. It cost me around the $2,600 mark, and I charged them $15,000. They were spending in excess of a couple $100,000 on this problem, and so when I presented the solution to them as an opportunity, they thought it was a bit of a no-brainer, and I articulated the problem well enough for them that they accepted the opportunity. So I developed my first product for the commercial building and automation niche. It took me roughly a couple of weeks to deliver that solution. It was relatively simple to put together, and they're really enjoying that solution. Could I actually turn this into a SaaS model in terms of that particular product for other engineering companies? It is quite possible to do that. I could have charged them a service fee for continual updates and support. The product was pretty simple to put together, and I found that one thing that I did find is the market was really small. There was only really 200 to 300 companies in the world that specialized in this area, and so unless I was building a really high-end solution for this business, then I felt that my opportunity to progress in this market was limited based on the numbers. And so I kind of also discovered that I really didn't like the niche that I'd chosen. I found dealing with engineers was really difficult. They have a very pragmatic approach, a very traditional approach to their business models. Change is not a great word for the engineering fraternity. Sorry to those engineers out there who might be watching this video. But I really just didn't find an affinity. I really found it very difficult to connect. So I decided to actually move on and explore the other niche of the plumbing industry. Within the plumbing niche, essentially what I did 15 IE calls that I completed. One of my IE calls turned into multiple solutions for a fairly large plumbing outfit. And so what had happened was, in talking to this managing director who was very generous with his time, gave me a lot of ideas and strategies on some of the things that were going on in his particular business. And he had a fairly large business. It was, very big turnover, multi-seven figures, and so it was really interesting. He told me about a specific problem, and we worked out that in this particular area of servicing a particular market for their business, it was costing him about $200,000 a year to service 60 customers. And so what it did was basically say that if there was a way to automate the exchange or the communication with those customers and make it easier where your salespeople wouldn't have to travel as much and make it easy for the client to access the information that would help them and make it easy for them, would something like that work for you? And he got pretty excited about that idea. So I went away and built a niche portal specifically for a specific market within their particular business. It cost me $2,600 to develop. I found a developer, an interface guy, and also a programmer to build the back end for this product. I charged $18,000 for the solution, and the solution was actually delivered within 10 days. So the client was pretty happy, and also now the system also has a web application attached to it, and it is now making them about $30,000 a month in revenue utilizing this automated solution. And thinking about this particular solution, again, I could also perhaps turn this solution into a SaaS model, but I found that this problem was so specific to this company that I was struggling with the idea of how to monetize from a SaaS perspective, whether I would have to customize significantly for other plumbers within that market. And this was a fairly unique business in the fact that it was a fairly large business and it had multiple divisions within that organization. And so from that, because that was so successful, they came back and asked me to, they understood that reviewing and reputation management online was very, very important. And so they asked me if there was a way to automate their reviewing or get their customers to actually give them 5-star reviews on social networks and on platforms on the internet. And so I started doing a little bit of homework on reputation management or automation of reputation management, and I came up with a really simple solution where it would send out surveys to their existing customers. It would automatically sync up with their database in their practice management system, and then when they entered new customers, they would automatically receive a notification asking for feedback on what they thought about the product or service that they provided, and then they would write a review, and then that review would be placed on a social network, and this company would get 5-star reviews. The conversion rate on that solution at the moment, they're getting 20% of the emails, 20% of the people that are being sent the information through the system are actually delivering a review, which was astounding to me. There is a small incentive attached to encourage the customer to leave a review, and then we have a very simple system where we've automated the process of putting that review online. I sold that. It cost me about a couple of $1,000s to develop that system using some third-party software. I personalized it, branded it for that company, and I charged them $15,000 for the system, and they've been delighted. So there were 2 software projects from one idea extraction customer, I would say. Now since then, they've actually come back to me again, and they're asking me, they've actually gone and given me a go-ahead on developing an intranet system that actually will manage the communication within multiple departments, and then marry that up with their internal systems. So that solution now is been a go-ahead and is about $45,000. So from being a consultant, all of a sudden I've turned myself into a middleman software company. and so not what I thought would happen in my journey, but I guess in doing idea extraction and listening carefully, it was too tempting for me not to provide a solution based on some of the challenges that were facing some of the people that I was speaking to. And so again, through my idea extraction calls, one of the things that I did realize within the plumbing niche as well is that they didn't like change. These people are tradespeople. They're very good at their craft or mastering their trade. They're not very good at running and operating their businesses successfully. They tend to use very primitive systems. There are proprietary software management tools that are available to the plumbing niche that are pretty good, and they're fairly comprehensive. They tend to base themselves around rescheduling and invoicing and also inventory control for the plumbing market. I did find that it was like pulling teeth a little bit through the idea extraction process, because they really didn't they didn't know, and they weren't in the mindset of, it'd be great if I could automate something. So I actually didn't pursue the plumbing niche after that, even though that I've had a very successful engagement with the plumbing market. And I guess out of the engagement that I've had, one of those products would be especially the review system that I developed for the plumbing client would be, I think, a relatively easy product to actually set up as a SaaS for multiple businesses, and maybe even specifically targeting the trade services. So I've yet to make a decision on whether or not I'm going to pursue that, but I guess, again, I've seen the ability to be able to find a problem, create a workflow from that problem to actually articulate and define that problem very specifically, and then from that workflow go to an outsourced provider and say, can we automate this process? And invariably I've found multiple people that could actually do that. And in most cases I'm also using third-party software to create a whole new entity or product for the client. So as I said, the market's not that tech savvy, and they're very mindful of their costs. And most plumbers really don't want to think too much about software. They want to make they just want to get calls for their business. Essentially, they want to get quotes. Their whole thing is, the more phone calls that I get, the more quotes I get, the more business I get. That's where most of their heads are at. So I then decided to start a new niche. The new niche that I've gone into was a niche that I was reluctant to go into, purely because of my affinity within that market. And so the niche that I chose was the digital marketing agencies and ad agency companies, specifically those that have a team of between 5+ people. They tend to have offices, they've got infrastructure, they're an established business, and so that was what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for the independent individuals out there. I was specifically looking for those who had an established agency to work with. And let me tell you, that market is huge around the world, and especially in the United States and Australia. And so here I am, 2 months in, going into a niche that I originally thought that I really didn't want to tap into, but I'm glad I did. So I did 40 IE calls in the digital ad agency niche, mainly going through LinkedIn and going through the digital associations and the ad associations, both in the US and in Australia. I found a main problem, and one of the things that I found, because it was so easy to talk to these guys and girls, I found it very easy to engage, but also I found it very easy to continue or remain to have that communication in clarifying with the people that I'd spoken to. So in the 40 IE calls, a problem evolved fairly quickly, and a lot of it revolved around software. And the other part of that was that most of the people were not happy with the incumbent products that were out there that were utilising. They were missing components. So I guess that opened the door to asking more questions about, well, what is missing, and what how important that is to that particular group. So I went through that process. I started validating an idea, and I started price anchoring for a product around the $199 mark. And the product was essentially a portal which managed the client management process from the time of the sale, to the creative direction of developing whatever project they were working on, to handling the administration, and it would automatically split the information to the respective departments within that business and make it easy for people to specifically manage and handle a client within the practice. There were software programs out there that were being utilised by the industry specifically. There were some pricey solutions, and then I discovered there were some fairly inexpensive solutions, but I'll talk about that in a moment. So I validated the idea, and then I sketched out the problem. Now I've got an example of the sketch here with me. This essentially is the sketch that I drew of the solution for the digital marketing agency industry. It was just a hand-drawn sketch of a workflow, and I would actually sit down on the phone through the people that I'd connected through idea extraction and walk them through that flow, and I'd actually get them to draw it out with me, and that would also make, that would enable me to make adjustments in that process. But what happened in that process was I actually asked people to send me money. I pre-sold 15 pre-sales at $750 each. Essentially, I was looking for 3 months of subscription to 3 to 4 months subscription to the product that I was developing. I raised $11,250, and I used PayPal. Now, I didn't have a business name for this project or product. I didn't have a website. I didn't have business cards. I was using a Gmail email account for this approach. So at this stage, I was just pre-selling an idea, like we've been taught in the foundation, and people were buying. And I guess because I'd had that direct connection, and because I was walking them through personally, it was almost like a one-to-one sale. There was no mass selling. For me, it was relatively easy to extract $750 on my idea. But then disaster struck, and my disaster, or my hiccup moment, came where I thought, well, if I could sell it relatively easily to people that I've built a relationship through idea extraction, then I should be able to sell it quite easily to the cold market, to people that I didn't have a relationship with, by going to them saying, here's a problem that I've discovered. Other people just like you have validated the problem. I'm looking for people who are looking to beta test, who are looking to be early adopters to this program. Are you willing to invest $750 in this idea? And I got no's. I got a lot of no's, surprisingly, from the coal market. Or I had people saying, "Hey, good idea. I love the idea, but it's not a must-have. You know, it's not really something that I absolutely need in my business." And so that became an interesting scenario of discovering other solutions as well that were a lot cheaper than the solution that I was providing for that particular group of people. And so what happened was I kind of got stuck there. I started questioning my idea, and I started to actually analyze my sales process with the people that I'd actually collected money from, because I thought about it, and I thought, well, $750 is not a lot of money. Yes, if you had a product that was specifically aligned for that particular problem, they would love the idea because it was specifically made for them. So there were a lot of pluses in that process. But when I went to that cold market, I found a lot of resistance, and also the fact that there was this constant referral to cheaper products in the market. So this really it was a bit of a stumbling block for me. It kind of created some friction for me. I started questioning my idea, and then I really thought about my idea, and I thought about the client, and I thought about the problem, and I realised that it wasn't going to stick. And so here I was thinking that I was back at the idea extraction process again, and here we are in March of this year, a few months ago, and I thought, God, I've got to start again, or I've got to go back into the problem. And then what happened was what I realised in my idea, I was reinventing a product that already existed. All I was doing was adding some features to it. And so I thought that wasn't really the way to go with this particular idea. So I decided to stop. And I felt that if I'm working so hard to convince people, then there's something wrong. It shouldn't be this difficult to convince people to take advantage of an idea that was great and something that was of an affinity to their particular business. So I stopped my idea, and I went back to the pre-sales, and I was actually considering on refunding all their money, saying, hey, you know, I'm just going through this exercise, realizing that it's actually not quite right, and I'm happy to refund all the money that I'd raised through the pre-sale. But then I guess I had a bit of a light bulb moment in talking to one of the people that I was about to refund money to. And one of the things that came out from it was that they said that they really enjoyed this process of the Q&A that they had with me in understanding what was going on in their agencies. And the one thing that he found that he struggled with was the fact that ad agencies are really great at generating business from referrals. They get lots of referral or repeat business from customers, but they're not really great at proactively going out there and marketing and picking up new customers, which is really strange for the marketing industry. But it's like the cobbler's old shoes. The cobbler's customers has beautiful shoes, and the cobbler has the torn shoes themselves. They don't look after their own shoes. So it's not that much different in the ad agency industry or the digital marketing industry. They're not great at going out there and prospecting and finding new clients. So in that conversation, I started talking about the idea is, look, I've got a whole bunch of you together that have invested in this idea. What if we actually set up a forum and we actually made that $750 your annual membership to that forum and introduce you together and communicate with each other and share ideas and strategies amongst the group on how we can, I guess, make being in an ad agency business easier and certainly more fun. So that really struck a chord with the person I was speaking to. I quickly rang every other person that I'd raised the pre-sales money for, and 14 of them pretty much said yes, they would love to be involved in a community. And also out of those conversations and going back to people and just talking about it, what had occurred was a few people said, wouldn't it be great if there was some way you could automate our sales process in terms of finding customers, engaging them and converting them to come and sit down with us and give us briefs for projects. And so all of a sudden the hairs on the back of my head went up, because this is an area that I do specialise in with my consultancy business in terms of automating sales processes. So 3 of the people that I spoke to agreed to pay me a setup fee to set up an automated sales process and sales funnel for their business, and so that gave me the idea to be able to do that as a software as a service as well, as part of the idea of developing the forum. So now I've got 2 things going at the same time. I've got I'm developing a membership forum where the annual membership is about $1,000 a year. The early adopters got in for $750. The way I'm pricing it is $187 a quarter or $77 a month, which is essentially turns into $1,000. If they pay out $187, it's $750 for year, so there's a saving. So that's how I would develop the forum. I'm actually looking to do webinars to bring more people into that forum. I believe that I could probably get 100 members within about 3 months with a fairly proactive campaign with Facebook marketing and advertising and promotion. I've got 3 of them who've agreed to pay for setup costs for a automated system. I'm charging them $4,500, $5,000 each for the setup. It's only, for the system to actually work, they only need to generate 1 client to cover their costs in that process. And then what I will do is I'll set up a retention-based structure around that automated system, and essentially it'll start at like $500 a month and then move up to bigger packages that might be $2,000 to $3,000 a month. So I've got 3 yeses on those, and 3 people willing to prepay for that setup. And so that's basically headed me off on another journey around developing a SaaS around sales automation for the ad industry. To me it's a bit of a sidestep, because I was really looking at building a particular software product and thinking about what I've achieved so far. I actually have done that now on a couple of occasions without even realizing that that's what I did. Regardless if I'm using third-party applications to develop a product, it's no different to developing a SaaS model by building a pro forma or a specific product for the actual market. My goal in this business is to generate $100,000 worth of revenue within the next 3 months on the membership side of things, and over the next 3 months hopefully get at least 5 to 10 clients taking me up on the automated sales process strategy, which is a product that I will build into the back end of the actual forum that I'm setting up for the digital marketing and digital agency community. And so that's where I guess that's where I'm at the moment. I'm pretty excited about what's going on for me, or certainly what's happened. The things that I've learned out of the foundation is that the community is actually quite extraordinary. There are some amazingly talented people who've come from so many different backgrounds, who are building fantastic products that solve amazing problems within their own specific niche markets. And being part of the foundation, that's inspired me in their stories, in what they're achieving out there and what they're doing. They're coming from such diverse backgrounds, and I think one of the things that the foundation does provide really well is that community of like-minded people who are all trying to make it happen. I guess one of the things I've also learned and realised through my journey through the foundation, it's allowed me to reflect a little bit about that whole process of starting a business or starting something from nothing or from thin air. And I realised that when you're actually starting your own business, you're probably investing in the best personal development program you'll ever invest in. Starting a business is a roller coaster. There's excitement, there's challenges, there's heartbreak, there's moments of tears, there's frustration, and then you have moments of joy. And then when things come together and when they click, they can be quite extraordinary, and they certainly give you, I guess, moments of euphoria and elation as well. And it is a journey, and so it's, I think people can be a little bit impatient, as I have been impatient. My thing is to get out there, get in there quick and get things done very, very quickly. And if I look at my path, it's certainly not been an arrow through this journey. I've gone in several zigzags. I went into 4 different niche markets through this journey in this 5-month period so far, and now it's almost like acres of diamonds. I've found my affinity with my expertise in the digital marketing and the digital agency market. So if there was something that I could share with people, is that you don't need a lot of money to start a business, but you do need to start with a market, and you do need to talk to people. You're not going to build a business without communicating to your customers, and you really need to engage those people and listen very, very carefully at what they're saying, so that you can actually develop and build better products and better services. So what will happen eventually is you'll build a magic bullet. You'll understand a problem so well and articulate that so well that people will just gravitate towards your solution, and you will get the momentum, and you will get your successes along the way. Your failures are certainly, if anything that the foundation has taught me, is your failures are certainly a great learning experience. I look back at all the stumbling blocks along the way, and I've got to tell you, there were many of them. I thought that time travels relatively quickly, and 5 months is not a long time, but I guess when you're really focused and you're really committed to your idea, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And with today's world of technology and the ability to outsource to highly skilled professionals from anywhere in the world, this is an extraordinary time. And the thing that keeps coming up in research that I've done with SaaS and the opportunities with software is we're not even at the tipping point at the moment in where we're at in the world with regard to automation or with regard to software solutions. There are so many industries out there that are crying for better efficiency, better productivity, better solutions, easier ways to connect, faster distribution. That opens up a whole world of new opportunities for people who want to become entrepreneurs. And so I guess for me, I've really enjoyed this journey so far, and I'm certainly looking forward to what's ahead of me, and certainly in my relationship with the foundation. I think that the best piece of advice that I can give you is get focused, get committed, and go out there and do something. Engage. Use your skills, use your knowledge, learn. from people. It's very easy to become an expert within a market, and idea extraction is a great way to become an expert by learning from people who have that experience and have that knowledge you're willing to share. It's very quick to find the common ground. I mean, it has opened doors for me to speak to my industry now. I'm speaking at conferences in the ad industry market based on my idea extraction process. It's introduced me to some extraordinary programmers and developers that I've found through Odesk and Freelancer and through the foundation community as well. And so I think for me, it's opened up a lot of doors. You know, here I am. I'm not. I don't feel old by any stretch of the imagination, but I kind of feel like I'm starting on another journey in the middle of my life. So I hope this has given you a few ideas, and I hope this has inspired you. Thank you very much for listening. I wish you all the very best of success in your journey down the entrepreneurial path. Thanks for watching.